Gonna make this short and sweet. Try to anyway. But I'll wind up rambling. Watch me. If it actually bears saying, religious icons the world over bear the ethnic marks of whatever the dominant ethnicity happens to be, where they are constructed. Just as surely as we see Jesus, Mary, Joseph, and the saints depicted variously with darker features in the churches of Asia, lighter features in the churches of Europe, features we might call Oriental, unless that's a word that's no longer used in polite society. Pray tell me what the replacement is. I don't want to be cast out from polite society if I can avoid it. Features we might call Oriental in the churches of Asia, for instance. Uh, and so, for instance, we see the icons of the Buddha, clearly an individual of northern Indian extraction, depicted likewise with certain Oriental features in those areas of Asia where the Buddhist religion has been embraced. It's not that hard to figure out. If I have stated anything that might appear self-contradictory in the course of this channel, it might very well be the case that I am fallible, only know so much, and sometimes catch myself in contradictions. It might be that the listeners, if there are any, it's not always clear to me that this whole enterprise is not just some tree dropping in an empty forest type of deal. So I guess it looks like I have a few subscribers, so somebody's listening. Where was I? It might be that the listeners are not entirely aware of some of the nuances of human thought and of human speech in the present day. Seems to be a problem quite a few of us are having, and it might, most likely scenario, if I do say so myself, be some combination of the above factors. Very evidently, there are people in this world who are aware of all this, are aware of our fallibility as humans, and aware of our occasional blindness to nuance. And they will go on and they will capitalize on the whole thing, now won't they? Uh, I would like to read the history of Christopher Columbus. Would like to know more about him. We're told he was a born Italian from the city of Genoa, and meanwhile, some other sources claim he might have actually been Portuguese, for instance. I just find the whole thing interesting. Uh, if it turns out the person was an enslaver of Native Americans and a downright criminal, then I suppose we don't need to be erecting monuments in his memory. So it goes for a lot of them. Mr. Jackson, I actually put out a video sometime on his channel about him. There's a bit of nuance there if you actually want nuance. A cruel man in many ways, a slaveholder and an often cruel one. Crueler still, it seems, once again, to the natives of this country. I cannot on good conscience defend the destruction of these monuments by what appear to me to be disaffected and miseducated youth, nor can I blame them for those social forces which have resulted in their disaffection and miseducation. They are young. Nor can I stand in arms in defense of some of these monuments, the monuments of our politicians, our generals, our secular leaders, who have often erred and erred quite catastrophically at times. I can only hope this does not entail the whitewashing of history, as appears to have taken place in China, for the simple reason that I like to learn. Uh, there is a blindness to nuance, and some surely will capitalize. Here's one. The man's name is Sean King. Any person with internet access, as I know you do, is free to run a search on this individual and decide for themselves. My opinion being that this is yet another capitalizer, an exploiter. I hope we can nip this sort of thing in the bud before anyone takes it seriously. It's not hard to figure out, but here goes. And he writes, yes, I think the statues of the white Europeans they claim as Jesus should also come down. They are a form of white supremacy, always have been. In the Bible, when the family of Jesus wanted to hide and blend in, guess where they went? Egypt, not Denmark. Tear them down. Yes. All murals and stained glass windows of white Jesus and his European mother and their white friend should also come down. They are a gross form of white supremacy, created as tools of oppression, racist propaganda. They should all come down. End quote. Now let me state as one man that I owe most of what is valuable in my character to a single institution. That is the Roman Catholic Church, where all others seem to have failed me and seem, as far as I can tell, to have engaged in a continuous effort to ridicule, libel, overwork, and overtax me, along with many, many others, with often much worse fates. I owe that single institution everything down to my handwriting, and I might very well be reduced to such a state as I have nothing left to show for myself but some decent cursive handwriting. Uh, whatever other paths your electronic gadgets and the people sputtering nonsense on them are gonna lead you down, don't come knocking on the doors of that institution looking for some action. This time you'll receive all the nuance you have coming. And that's all I have to say about that. I'll tell you who comes creeping in to capitalize, to exploit. I'll tell you their names. I'll show you their faces. And ain't nobody erecting monuments to them because they hide, you see. There's nothing to tear down when the real people calling the shots hide. Last video I put out, I accused our institutions of regarding us similarly to a domesticated animal. I didn't mean this figuratively. Now listen. When thoughts, ideas, catchphrases, sensibilities, music, imagery, etc. are placed into the human bloodstream deliberately by people who think it's garbage, then we can rightly say it's garbage. When it's orchestrated deliberately by people who think it's bad, it's as if I deliberately set out to find the worst cook in the world and set before them the worst ingredients in the world. Then we could objectively classify the results of this endeavor as a poor meal. Long way of saying, I think they might have kind of had their way with us. You want to know who the real they is? I'll show you one. The man's name is Edward Bernays. The book is called Propaganda. So kind of some of these propagandists to publish some of their literature, so kind of their estates to allow some of their literature to come into the public domain. I would have kept it hidden. And again, who knows what they're saying about us in private. From 1928, the text opens. Chapter 1, Organizing Chaos. Quote, the conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. This is a logical result of the way in which our democratic society is organized. Vast numbers of human beings must cooperate in this manner if they are to live together as a smoothly functioning society. And almost every act of our daily lives, whether in the sphere of politics or business, in our social conduct or ethical thinking, we are dominated by the relatively small number of persons who understand the mental processes and social patterns of the masses. It is they who pull the wires which control the public mind. End quote. Yeah, it just gets better. And this is not uh, figurative by any means. This is a literal exposition of how we are regarded Ain't no statues of people like Mr. Bernays. Nothing to destroy, you see. And the men who spurned us on sit in judgment of all wrong. They decide, and the shotgun sings a song. And I suppose he's not wrong by the standards of his time, perhaps. Yet in a free country, in the information age, there is no excuse to allow one's own mind to be propagandized. So I don't care who told you so. Keep your garbage away from the church. Tell you what, I'll make a deal with you. Are there monuments still standing somewhere in the vicinity of the state of Tennessee in honor of Nathan Bedford Forrest? Well, I got some new free time on my hands. You can see I'm sitting here at leisure making a silly YouTube video. I'll come down there. I'll help you tear it down. We don't need to be erecting monuments to some of these people. I know about him. I heard about him. He ain't too great. Okay? In return, stay away from the church. Deal?